Welcome to Around Town with Rotary. My name is Mike Harrington. I'm one of today's co-hosts. This is a monthly show that we produce that really highlights some of the really interesting people that are involved in the Beverly Rotary Club. The Beverly Rotary Club has been around for over 100 years now. We have over 100 members. At this time, I'd like to introduce my co-partner, my partner in crime here, Al Temkin, and Al will introduce today's very special guest.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
It is my pleasure to welcome my friends Ken and Marisa Kroll to our show here today. Ken is a Rotarian with us and has been for the past few years, and these two have led I would say what's a very interesting background, and this is a first, by the way. Normally we interview the Rotarian, and this time we're doing a husband and wife team, which is kind of fun.
Happy new trend.
So happy new trend, right? Yeah,
awesome.
Here we are.
She's too much fun to keep out of it.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about a bunch of things. So, and I think it might make sense just to start at the very, very beginning. Let's talk about where you guys grew up and how you got into into where you are now. But let's start with where you grew up.
You want me to start?
I do.
Good.
Okay. Sorry for my accent. Hopefully everybody understands
Don't apologize for your accent.
But I grew up in Spain, in Madrid, Spain, and I lived there for 25 years. I went to school. I went to the La Universidad Complutense de Madrid, and I got a degree in education. And while I was working full-time, and I was going to school at night. And I got my degree at night. And I never lived in a dormitory, never had the college experience, which I missed, unfortunately. So when we were looking for our children schools, I wanted to be there and have the chance to live the school experience. So I met Ken in 1979, and I came here in 1984 when we got married.
So you grew up in Spain.
I did grow up in Spain until we got married in 1984.
Perfect. And Ken, you?
I grew up in Wellesley, Massachusetts, so I apologize for my attitude. No, not really. No, it was great. It was a wonderful place. I lived there. I knew nothing about the North Shore. I certainly didn't know anything about Beverly at the time. Went to school at St. Lawrence University in upstate New York. I've always lived around the Boston area pretty much until I was lucky enough to come to Beverly.
Mm-hmm. And what is it that brought you to Beverly?
You know what? We lived in Peabody, and we had our first house there. And since she grew up in Madrid and she loved the beaches, and I was like, okay, yeah, I guess there's beaches here. We used to go to Dane Street Beach because you could sleep late, you could park there.
Right.
No charge. It was pretty cool. And then driving through, we said, wow, this is such a nice residential place. And one day we finally saw a house that was for sale on Abbott Street. And we put in a bid and got it. This was 1991.
Oh, perfect.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's going to
It
be
worked out
30,
well.
Perfect.
31 years.
So let's kind of fast forward just a bit. Tell us about your early careers. Mm-hmm. So you went to school, went to university, went to school, and then, Ken?
Yeah, so I studied economics and Spanish at school, and I kind of always wanted to use Spanish in my career. I got a job at Bank of Boston, and I worked there pretty much throughout the 1980s. I worked in international private banking, which was a pretty good career. I mean, especially a guy 28, 29 years old. I'd go to Venezuela, Argentina, Chile, Brazil, and I would speak to clients of the bank and high net worth individuals that we wanted to become clients of the bank. Obviously used a lot of Spanish, learned a lot of things. But then about 1990, as we mentioned, Marisa had started the business, and I moved over with her. So she'll tell you about how she started it.
Yes, when I came here, well, first when I was in Spain, I worked in a multinational pharmaceutical company called Glaxo. Then it merged and it's SmithKline and all these other companies. But that job was the one that made me interested in the business world. I work in marketing and sales, and I was completely, enthusiastic about the marketing world and bringing products to the market. So, but my schooling was in education. So here I am. I got married to him, and I'm like, okay, where am I gonna go, and what am I gonna do there in the United States? My English wasn't that great at that time, so I was afraid to even answer the phone when I arrived. He was like, oh my God, there is a phone, and it's ringing. So what am I gonna do? So, anyways. I got a job. My first job, it was at the time, it was 1984 when we got married. It was full employment here, which it was very unusual for coming from Spain, because we had like almost a 25% unemployment. So it was like very easy to get my first job, and it was I wanted to get a job very close to where he was, and it was just a company, a consulting company, but that was not what I wanted to do. All of a sudden, the people that he worked with in the bank wanted to get better in their Spanish skills. So they asked me if I was able to practice with them and to give them some Spanish lessons. I had the degree in education. I said, sure, I can do it after my job. So I started to teach some of his colleagues.
Yeah.
And
it's pretty rare to speak Spanish in those days. So the fact that she was a native was, a real bonus, I think.
Sure, big help, yeah.
So it was kind of a natural education degree. It was like, hey, I cannot be working full time in another company and then work until 9 o'clock just giving the Spanish classes. So maybe I should start the company. So I started a Spanish school at that time while Ken was working at the bank. And I got my first little Spanish school in downtown Boston, right on Federal Street.
So you were teaching people to speak Spanish?
That's right.
Yeah.
For 4
Interesting.
years.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
For 4 years by myself. Ken was still at the bank. And it started to grow a lot. Like every year I needed to lease another space in downtown Crossing and another space. And then that business also included translations of documents and voiceovers, and it was getting to be too big when we had our first child.
Yeah, well, we'd had, Alex was born, and we just signed a lease on a, for us, pretty big commercial space, and it was nervous time, I mean, how are we going to do this, kid? I decided that was a good time for me. I was getting more interested in what was going on in her business than what was going on at the bank, which was, I don't know, for various reasons, I didn't feel like I really wanted to stay there. So, I jumped over then, and we just started working together.
And I learned my first one of these saying that you put all the eggs in the same basket.
Yeah.
And that's what we did, and it was very scary.
Oh, yes.
Well, I think I was more worried how it was going to affect the marriage. I always kind of felt like we'd be okay in business, but I mean, that's when you work together, raise a family together.
A lot of moving parts,
Moving parts,
but we were lucky.
Well, hey, let's back up the train for a minute. We appreciate you walking us through your early career and what you were thinking about doing professionally. It sounds like the language school just kind of took off almost organically through kind of happenstance. But how did you folks meet on a personal level? What brought a boy from Wellesley and a girl from Madrid together? In the first place?
I'm going to let her tell the story because I get accused of leaving out some salient details. So,
I put the details,
Yeah.
but it stopped me when I get into too many details. We met in 1979 in February, in a beautiful day in Madrid, Spain, and we met in the subway of Madrid. I was going with a lot of friends of mine. We were going to a political event because Spain had been on a dictatorship for 40 years. And we just became a democracy, so all these political parties wanted to get members, and they were doing a lot of partying, for the young people. So everybody in Madrid, is a big city, meets at the subway. So I was meeting with my friends from the different places in the city, in the subway, when we saw a friend of Ken's coming out from the subway. A friend of mine knew him, this boy, called him, and then Ken came in another train. And we were like, oh.
yeah, we were going to the same place, and we had a big political
He's cute.
argument. We had a big political argument right off the bat, so, that got things going, but yeah.
And my teacher, I was learning English at that time. My teacher said to me, the best way to to learn English and not spend a lot of money is to find an American boyfriend. And I said, that's it.
Well, she was a very wise teacher.
Use me.
So tell us
He
about,
did the same with me, with his Spanish.
well, tell us about your courtship. Was it complicated being from different places and different cultures? I mean, how did
Yeah.
you guys make it go in those early months? And
Wow. I mean, when we think about it now,
Crazy.
first of all, you got to remember that phone calls, obviously no internet, no email, no WhatsApp, anything like that. Phone calls were quite expensive. I mean, you guys probably remember, but if you called overseas, it was about $3 a minute. So, needless to say, I mean, we'd occasionally have a phone call, but then after about 20 minutes, I'd start to say, like, hey, I got to go. And she said, what do you mean you got to go? Where are you going? Where do you got to go? Things like that.
I didn't get it. I didn't
She didn't
understand
understand that there was a financial
I said, somebody else
implication.
is waiting for him.
Yeah, no, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But we wrote a lot of letters, and that was unusual, I think, in that when you write a letter, you really write about what's going on. Like I would write about the elections in 1980. She wrote about there was a coup d'etat, an attempted coup in Spain in 81, and you say, this is what happened, this is what I was feeling, this is what we were all doing. So, I mean, there was a certain depth to those letters, but
Yeah,
it wasn't easy. We'd see each other, once a year or so.
We saw each other once a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Oh,
it was
really?
kind
Okay.
of always it was very nervous-wracking time because we didn't know from 1 year before
Once a year.
what we were going to find.
And it's like meeting somebody for the first time once a year.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You were
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay,
Interesting.
is this going to work?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. Well, obviously, it's working quite well. Let's kind of fast forward a little bit to today, and so you live here in Beverly.
Yeah,
That's been made clear.
sure.
Tell us about your family.
Well, we have two boys. Sorry, I didn't have you want
Yeah,
this,
we
but,
have two boys.
We're lucky that they're both kind of local. My eldest, Alex, lives with his wife, Ella, who's young Turkish lady in Salem. And so we get to see them quite a bit. And Dan works in, Alex does software sales, by the way, for inventory systems, which is a very topical thing now. And Dan is in finance, and he lives in South Boston.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and Dan is dating a girl that
Yeah.
was born here in the United States, but is all her parents and all her family are in Connecticut. They are from Spain,
oh, really?
and this is
That's weird, huh?
very unusual. Very
Right.
unusual because we are people from Spain. We are not immigrants to this country or any country.
Really? Yeah.
So to find somebody that is from Spain is very unusual, and he's dating her. He's been dating her for two and a half years too.
Isn't that
So
interesting?
it's very we have become a very international kind of
Great.
family.
Yeah,
It's
obviously.
an international world, isn't it? Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's terrific. So you talked a lot about starting your company and the growth of that. Can you just get into just a little bit more detail on that? So I think you said you came here, you were teaching Spanish, and it just kind of expanded. Can you talk about, and you talked about some other things, that the translation and some other things that you were
Yes.
doing. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yes. So we started teaching what my education degree was about and my language was about and my culture was about. So that was an easy thing for me to apply my education to a business model, and it worked very well. And it was growing very fast, and we needed to have to change space leases like every 3 or 5 years because it was growing very fast. I mean, we became the first Spanish school in Boston that taught Spanish. So at the time, it was like 1996 when we decided we had so much space for classrooms, but the classes that we were doing were continuing education. They were adults,
Yeah.
business people taking Spanish classes.
Nighttime and Saturdays.
Yeah. So we had a lot of space that it was fairly expensive in downtown that was unused during the day. So we came up with a strategic idea of starting an English for foreigners school, for international school. And we applied for a visa to be able to give visa to international students. And then we had to house them. And then we had to be their lives in this country while they were away. So that school was Boston Academy of English, and we started that together in
Yeah, and
1996.
that got to be the really big thing, because when you have students that come here from overseas, you have to be involved with issuing them I-20s, which is the government authorization. You do housing, you do activities, you do a lot of programs, so you know you need a bigger staff for that.
Sure.
But on the other hand, they're willing to take, and in fact they need to take English on an intensive basis, so it's a lot more hours. It gets to be a much bigger thing. So that became the dominant thing. One other thing that we did that she'd mentioned was foreign language translations, and we did
That's what I said.
voiceovers, and you mentioned your connection to Beverly too, because we had a Spanish school in Beverly.
Yeah, we started in Beverly in 1995. We had our second child, Daniel, and I said, I think that we can start a Spanish school for children. Start children learning Spanish when they are very little. So we, on Cabot Street, 234 Cabot Street, we rented a space and we started a Spanish school for children.
Isn't that funny?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, goodness. You folks really expanded.
So it was, we started to go
goodness.
to different schools. It was very busy.
Such a great entrepreneurial story. Well, hey, on the other side, we're going to talk more about your school and the way you folks operated that and ran together. But we're going to take a break here just for a couple of minutes, folks. All you at home, please watch this video for the next couple of minutes. It's a great video that talks about all the people of Rotary and some of the great projects we've worked on in recent years. And we'll see you back on the other side in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
We raise a lot of money for Beverly organizations.
And they bought us our refrigerated van.
They made a significant contribution to the restoration of Ellis Square.
They helped us house a family experiencing homelessness.
They bought us our bookmobile.
They were actually the first ones to donate instruments to the high school band.
They bought oxygen masks for our rescue dogs.
They helped buy our school bus.
They fund the annual Bradgate Ice Cream Social at Lynch Park every summer, and they even scoop the ice cream.
Since 2014, they've supported the Cabot, funding preservation of this historic gem.
They helped to fund the Council on Aging van.
They were a major donor to our new infant toddler playground. They bought an emergency generator for Harbor Lighthouse.
We funded and built the gazebo.
And we've got a green thumb.
A lot of green thumbs.
A lot of green thumbs.
Not to mention sculptures.
We planted more than 100 trees last year.
They donated a shuttle bus stop that brings veterans to the VA hospital in Bedford.
We're going to buy a water drone to clean plastics out of Beverly Harbor.
They make a big difference for United Way.
We give up to 8 scholarships.
8 scholarships every year since the mid-1980s.
And I was a recipient, and thanks to their help, I was the first in my family to go to college.
It's more than just a local organization.
There are 33,000 clubs
in 200 countries with 1.2 million members worldwide.
All that good adds up.
Those do-gooders just keep doing good.
We funded 13 wells in Kisumu, Kenya, bringing water to 13 schools.
We contributed to Kalusha School in Pakistan, and later to the construction of a fabulous women's college.
Hi, I'm Izzy Polito. I'm Mirabella Polito. I'm Andrea Polito. And we're all youth exchange students.
We started the youth exchange program 13 years ago, partly because I was also an exchange student in 1979.
I'm Aku. I'm from Finland. They hosted me as exchange student.
We funded Dr. Gordon Sato of Hamilton, who devised a way to grow trees in salt water in Senegal, Mauritania, and Eritrea.
Our club has funded at least 20 life-changing surgeries around the world.
And we've participated as non-medical volunteers
in the Philippines,
in Bolivia,
and Venezuela.
And remember,
since launching the Polio Plus campaign over 30 years ago, the number of polio cases worldwide has dropped 99%.
In 2019, clubs in the district joined the Polar Plunge to eradicate polio. The clubs raised $90,000.
Can we get back to Beverly, please?
Over the past 10 years, we've raised, probably about $100,000. Try $400,000.
Over the past 10 years, we've raised over $1 million.
I have made some wonderful friends.
It's downright inspiring.
It's an important part of my week.
It's a very important part of my week.
Sometimes it's the best part of my week.
It's one of the best things I do.
Even if people still ask about the secret handshake.
Well, welcome back to Around Town with Rotary. Special guests here today, Ken and Marissa Crowell. We were talking about the wonderful schools they built and operated for the last number of years. And just to get back to the school for a moment, Ken, how did you folks actually split up the responsibilities? You had a multifaceted school.
Yeah,
with
wow.
revenue centers. Who did what?
I mean, there was a lot of overlap, I'll say that much. And a lot of times we planned that day's agenda like just driving down, across the Zakin Bridge to get to work. But she was basically in charge of getting fannies and seats there. I mean, she had to get the students to come in, which is a real challenge because the whole world is your marketplace. So, what do you select? So she was kind of in charge of keeping the numbers going.
Can I add something at that? And that comes to the selling of the school. The time that we were doing Boston Academy of English and selling to the school, we didn't have internet started, and Google had not still been created, and Yahoo was, and we became very savvy on Google and Yahoo because we needed to market to the world, and that was a big thing of what I trained myself at the beginning to do, is to sell the school through the internet to Google and Yahoo, and that helped us a lot in the sale of the school.
Yeah, we were one of the first ones actually to use Google. I was more the day-to-day operations, human resources, some of the legal, finding new space sometimes when we had to move, so more logistical things, really.
And he did all the, we needed to be audited by the organization that controlled the accreditation of our school, and he did all the accreditation paperwork.
Well, kudos to you folks for building such a successful business, a multifaceted business, and having so much success.
Thank you.
Now, it is no longer. Tell us about how you ended your relationship with the school.
Wow, yeah. So we had come off a few really good years, 2012, 13, 14. We were approached by an overseas equity company from Great Britain, and they were looking to expand. They had English schools in the UK, which is where the majority of the world schools are.
And Europe, too, like in Amsterdam.
Yeah. So I get a call from this guy, and it's like, yeah, we're interested in seeing your school, maybe we can work together. And, anytime I get one of those, I would always entertain it, but I'm like, it's not going to be anything, right? Well, he saw our school. He really liked it. He went to all the schools in Boston, and he said, well, I'd like to make you...
All the independent schools.
Yeah, the independent schools. I'd like to talk about making you an offer. I said, well, we're not for sale. I mean, where did you see the for sale sign? I mean, things are doing great here.
Yeah.
So we started to talk about numbers, and it started to kind of make some more sense for us because maybe in a few years you don't get an offer. Maybe things go bad. I mean, there was COVID. There were some scholarship programs to dry it up. So we ended up saying, you know what, this is a great opportunity. Let's do it.
We were helped by our advisors, too, because we were not making the decision very quickly.
No, and we didn't really have an exit plan either.
We don't want to sell. What are we going to do? We are too young. What are we going to do after this? And
well, it sounded like it happened quite quickly.
Yeah,
and you
quickly.
You made a choice.
It all happened within a year.
Yeah.
Less.
Yeah.
Well, good for you guys. And to get yourself to that point is just amazing. So it's just a wonderful story. Let's talk about Rotary for a little bit.
Yeah.
So when did you start, when did you become a Rotarian, Ken, and who introduced you to the club?
I became a Rotarian in October 2019, so almost 3 years. I was introduced, I'd have to say, we did some work with Joe Broderick, actually, at Montserrat through our school. They were looking at starting a program there. And we'd see her around town, and she said, yeah, you guys, you should really, think about Rotary. What is it? And, we knew Diane. We'd also met you by that time, Al. And I was looking for a way. We were kind of both looking, since our careers had been so Boston-centric. And we loved Beverly, but we wanted to know more about it. We wanted to meet more of the people that were involved with it. So it seemed like a great opportunity, and it's, I haven't regretted it at all.
What would you say, I'm going to ask both of you this question, what would you say are the top 2 or 3 things that you enjoy most about Rotary?
Do you want to say it? Go ahead.
Well, I actually I'm not a member of Rotary, but we had to discuss who was going to be the member, and we thought that Ken was going to be the one that had the time for these beautiful lunches that you have. Rotary is an international organization that is all over the world. Right. So the fact that they do community service all over the world, and it's not just only localized, that was something that it was very attractive to us. And that's one of the things why Rotary, instead of another organization that we would spend time. The second thing, it was to meet the people from the community too. We really have been in Boston for 28 years and work 24/7 with growing the business. So it was time for us to really get to see the beautiful community that where we were living. So Rotary was the organization that we felt it was the one that it was gonna give us that. We learned about what through Joe Broderick. She invited us to some of the lunches as guests, and we said, I think that this is.
Yeah, I mean, certainly
us.
the service, the fellowship out, and I was just thinking about this the other day. I don't think I've ever been to a Rotary lunch where I've left and not gotten something out of it, either a conversation with somebody, maybe I didn't know them that well before that, certainly a few laughs, information about what's going on, and the service. It's kind of like church.
Well, Gene, I'll ask a few minutes here. I just want to touch a little bit on this next phase. You folks are retired now, but I know you're both keeping busy. What are some of the things you're doing to keep busy these days?
I do a few things with the community. I deliver Meals on Wheels. I'm the chair of the development board for Habitat for Humanity. I've got, we travel a lot. We like to travel, and so now that we're able to get back in that, we go to Bermuda. We're going back to Spain that we haven't been to for 3 years. We're going there in September.
Yes, and we always try to when we retire, we had a project that we started actually before we retire. We wanted to help out and give back to the community, not just the community in Beverly, but to a cause. And the cause that we were looking into was foster care. And we bought a house in Railroad Avenue to help out to house the girls that were that came out of foster care. And we had this beautiful house. We remodeled it completely, and it didn't work. The permits were not there. So unfortunately, this has always was in our minds to find out projects like this that we were able to help out to communities that were in need, and they were not probably in a lot of they didn't have the access enough by the government. So we decided to start. When we sold the business, we started our own foundation, private foundation, and through the foundation we are helping and supporting 16 different organizations.
Last year we helped 16 organizations and individuals,
national
and we're looking to expand that.
So you're keeping it very busy. Good for you folks.
Yes.
A lot of really worthwhile stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I just can't thank you enough for joining us. Your story is incredible. Your life is amazing because you made it that way. And on top of all that, it sounds like you have a beautiful family. So I just, Ken, Marisa, thank you so much. Yeah, I would say you are, because you made it that way. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your life and your story with us. Mike, always a pleasure to be with you, my friend. And for those of you that are watching, to learn more about the Beverly Rotary Club and all the great things that we do in the community, you can go to BeverlyRotaryClub.com or certainly get in touch with either one of us at any time. Thank you so much for joining us.